So, ladies and gents, we now have a panel discussion around power sector threats. I think a lot of our OT security conversation has been neglected in the past, right? So this panel should probably give some insight around things over and above mainly the banking sector. So we have other industries that are dependent on specific systems which are completely exposed. OT security, by the way, globally is not a very established practice. I know somebody who's at IBM who's written some white papers and has developed a certain framework for managing OT security, but I think there's a lot more work needs to be done. For that, I'd like to call upon Mr. Jamal Nasir Khan, the CEO of Supersecure, please. He will moderate the session. Mr. Jamal, you're here, sir. Welcome on stage. I'll introduce the rest of the people and then you can take it over. We've also got Mr. Razi Faruqi, Deputy Director and CISO for K Electric. Razi Saab, you're in the room. All right, while Mr. Razi makes his way up here, remotely, we've got Tariq Mahmood Saab, he's a CIO for National Transmission and Dispatch Company, NTDC. Tariq Saab, can you hear us? Okay, let's move on and we'll come back. Arshad Saab, Arshad Javed Minhas Saab is a CIO for Central Power Purchasing Agency, CPPA. Arshad Saab, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you so much. Can I please also invite Mr. Mehzad Seher, Group Head for Infosec at Engro. Mehzad, welcome on stage, please. Can I also invite Mr. Asad Effendi, Founder and CEO of Secure Networks, please, to kindly come on stage for the panel. Mr. Khwaja Tanveer Salim, IT Leader for United Energy Pakistan. Khwaja Tanveer Saab. Okay. I think Khwaja Saab is not feeling well. So we've got Arshad Saab, we've got Tariq Mahmood Saab is missing, I think. Is he online? He's not online. All right, so over to you, sir. We'll run the panel. I get you 2 mics. Can we test the hand mics, please? Mic. Go.
Is it working? Hello? आवाज आ रही है? I think ये अब चल रही है सर.
Check. उसका sound.
Thank you. We got late, and unfortunately, Chairman NEPRA has to leave for some. Is it working? Hello? Yeah. So unfortunately, we got late, and one of our key panelists, Chairman NEPRA, has to leave because of some other important assignment. But in any case, we have a strong panel along with the CPPA CIO as well. So basically, as Noman said, that power infrastructure is one of the most important component of our modern infrastructure. And a disruption in energy supply impacts all aspects of society, starting from healthcare, telecom, banking, and national security as well. And with the threat of cyber attack growing substantially, and threat actors are becoming increasingly sophisticated at carrying out attacks, both in their destructive capabilities and their ability to identify vulnerabilities, it is becoming more and more important to discuss do we have any framework in our power infrastructure? Is there any policy guidelines which have been issued by the regulator? So my few questions to Chairman NEPRA, I just want to, start the discussion with this preamble that, do we have any cyber security regulations for power sector, as is being done in the telecom sector by PTA. PTA has introduced a complete new division for cyber security. So, and they have also, drafted and approved cybersecurity regulations as well. So my questions to uh, Mehzad Safdar Saab is that, do we have anything from NEPRA as yet, or do we have any visibility on any guidelines which are being provided or any plan for any regulations?
So, power or energy sector perspective from NEPRA, there is a kind of directive guidelines available for cyber security, but they are, I will still say, at the foundation level, and they are talking about very basic ingredients and very obvious foundation level things. Although OT cybersecurity, to be honest, it's a totally different animal. And we can't gauge this the way we gauge this using payment or financial industry security requirement. So as I said, this is a special area. Even globally, there are standards which are not typical ISO 27001 or this type of security framework. There are global standards and framework like IE, 62443. So for example, in UK, you can't launch any plant unless you go through this framework. So you'll have to certify your plant. And they are in very much in detail because in OT, you don't talk about CIA. Here, actually, you talk about A first, which is availability, then integrity, and finally, confidentiality. So the overall equation is what I want to say is change. Also, the technology is not a typical IT technology. So if any local framework talk about, the typical SOC or risk management, that language will not work. It's required, as I said, a different framework. I can give you example. In the current guidelines, for example, it is talking about that all power sector should have SOC, Security Operations Center. But Security Operations Center, for IT perspective, yes, we may have. And practically speaking, all of our national power agencies, forget OT SOC, they don't have even IT SOC. And here we are talking about OT SOC, which itself is a journey. So first of all, they need to create a visibility about a foundation level IT perspective threats through their SOC. Having such visibility, then they can plan for OT level, SOC. So there is a complete, I will say, a journey is required, a complete roadmap is required, which is adopted by companies like us or K Electric, but still there is a big demand to make it more systematic, yeah.
So, Razi, I would ask you this follow-up question as Asab said, that, there are certain protocols through which the plants and the distribution network and everything works, and it depends upon, the equipment supplier. There are international standards, as he said, on the protocols and everything. And those are the areas which we have seen in 2017 in Ukraine, where, half of the capital, faced outage because some national attacker attacked and used those protocols to infiltrate into the power system and shut down for a very, very significant time half of the city. So how are we, I'm sure you people must be working, and I'm also looking forward for, as we move forward, we will be moving towards more smarter grids, smarter power plants, and there will be integration of OTs and IT and everything. So, and this increased efficiency, we cannot make an air gap power plant and say that this will be handled physically by some technicians. Everywhere we are going through automation. So what is the experience of KE in this area, and what is your recommendation going forward? Because one of the reasons this panel was made was to, send recommendations to NEPRA that what operators, as far as the discos are concerned, you people are completely integrated operator as well as, generating power as well. So what do we need to do?
Can you hear me? Okay, so first, thanks so very much for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I know K Electric does not go down well with too many of our consumers, but that's a different story. And we have the dubious distinction of actually experiencing a ransomware attack about a couple of years back. So I think that puts me sort of in a unique position to tell you what is happening on the trenches. And actually picking up from what you just mentioned and what the panel around here is saying, I think, so coming back quickly to what NEPRA is doing. So NEPRA have start stakeholder management. They have sought on a draft for cybersecurity framework and a risk management framework. And they've actually asked the power utilities to start uploading few of the fundamental data. What are the teams and whatnot? I think it probably makes more sense for the local industry because K Electric is the only one which is in generation, transmission, and distribution. So we are looking at the 360, the whole stack. And it's critical to understand we do not have that expertise as a local society, as a local industry. We have to adopt, as Mehzad rightly pointed out, ISO 27001 or one of those frameworks. Now, interestingly, within the OT and power sector, so for example, US Department of Energy, US DOE, they have C2M2, cybersecurity maturity model. And actually at KE, we started on that journey about 3 years back, and we are sort of, measuring against that. So I think coming back to your question is yes, there is the Purdue model. We all know how that Purdue model integrates IT and OT, but I think there has to be an executive advocacy as well, because unless there is executive, and I feel we are very sort of fortunate because our board and our management is absolutely sort of supportive on the cybersecurity. But I think 2-3 quick things which can get us on the right track is sort of an official sort of NEPRA direction, some sort of direction or guidelines. And as Mehzad rightly pointed out, if not really on an advanced level, perhaps something foundational in terms of architecture review board, in terms of, those 8 or 10 domains which are laid out in C2M2, perhaps adopting or requiring the power utilities to sort of, adapt that C2M2 or one of the other frameworks. And then also looking at the journal awareness, because as Mehzad said, it's not financial sector. So while financial sector impacts you and me, critical infrastructure like power utility is essentially national critical infrastructure. And that is something which needs to be taken up from a very high level as well. Now, all these things, whether we have SOC or whether we have done, but there are a few fundamental issues and elements which are imperatives. For example, threat hunting. So for example, threat intelligence, actionable intelligence on which, quick sort of, responding incident response management frameworks. Those are the kind of things which can perhaps provide us with tools to have early detection. But as they say, there's no 100% foolproof security. Yeah.
So we have Arshad Javed sir. Are you listening to us? Nahi hai wo? Okay. So unfortunately, he has also left because of the delay in the session. So, Asad, to you, how do you see power sector? Because as Mehzad and Razi pointed out that on the OT side, obviously, there are, not that mature framework available. And on the IT side, yes, we have some tried and tested models in the banking industry as well, and in the telecom industry as well. But seeing the maturity level of banking sector, and then the way PTA is handling the telecom sector and bringing up to the par, what I have seen in PTA is that on every year they have made it mandatory to have an external audit, to have SOC and SIEM, to have vulnerability assessment, pen testing. They have also appointed external pen testers who are approved by PTA to make sure that, and there are level of auditors as well who can audit Telenor or Jazz. So likewise, over here, what I see is that maybe I'm wrong. In the power sector, especially from the plant operator point of view, the plant operator, plant supplier, the equipment supplier is mostly, those guys who have their own closed loop systems, and they are only, interfacing with other equipment supplier on some standard protocols and interface, which are proprietary as far as not common as TCP/IP or IP, I would say. So, what role a cybersecurity service provider or solution provider can play over there, rather depending upon the equipment supplier? Because a banking software, when it runs, or a telecommunication software or switches, if it runs, they have their core job to provide connectivity or financial payment and everything. Whereas the cybersecurity solution and products and services is totally a different ball game. So what are your views on this?
Absolutely. You are 100% correct on this point that the IT security and OT security are completely two different ball games altogether. And as Mr. Mehzad and Mr. Razi mentioned, this is the need of the hour. And as cyber services security providers, our first job should be the awareness part. We cannot protect what we cannot see, whether it is a physical security, IT security, OT security, or any other security. Visibility is very important. And to have the visibility on these OT assets, we need to generate the awareness to the industry and the regulators that what kind of threats are we talking about, what can go wrong. There is a very common misconception in OT security that there is no internet to it. It is working on an isolated network, so it is protected, but it is not the case. There can always be a physical interference with a USB stick, just like the Iran nuclear. It was
Stuxnet,
absolutely. It was initiated by a USB. Again, then let's suppose you restrict the physical access to your SCADA systems. Still, what if the new SCADA system that you are purchasing, which is coming into your network, it is coming with a vulnerability existing in it, and then it can trigger at a certain point of time. It can be disastrous to your whole operation. So awareness is the key, and I'm very thankful to the committee to bringing up this. I think it is the first time that we have introduced in the information security concept this topic. I believe that a lot of work has to be done for the awareness, and as well as the regulators need to really put their feet down now. This is the time. We are already seeing, because we are engaged with Ministry of Energy, we are engaged with CPPA, we are engaged with KE, Angro, all these major enterprises. And you know what? These people have a lot of awareness, they have the will, they have the funds, and they're doing great job in protecting their assets. But what about the industry, which is like in Multan, Lahore, and in interior Sindh, and a lot of, and then in Karachi, there are so many industries which are not like big brands, but still they need to be protected because they are our export backbone. So if they stop working, if their operations go halt, a lot of people can lose their jobs and a lot of things can go wrong.
So this is a very important part where the regulator has to come in. And as Mr. Razi Faruqi mentioned that, or maybe Mr. Mazad, that you cannot, in an international community, you cannot launch a plant without being compliant with the cyber security standards, because it can, you are playing with people's lives. What if there is a plant is being launched to purify the water, and then that plant is misfunctioning, the water itself is not being purified, and we'll see these things in coming future, God forbid, if we'll not take care of it.
Just want to add one example here to show the value of cybersecurity. RasGas is adding 60% of the revenue of the overall country of Qatar. So 2-3 years back, they were under cybersecurity attack. And as far as they were having the OT specific cybersecurity monitoring center, they were able to capture on timely manner a threat which was about to materialize, but it was avoided. And the threat was that all of your command and control center, they were showing right value for the pressure, for the boiler, for the mixture. But actually in reality, the integrity of these dashboard was compromised. So all of these command and control center staff was relaxing, but at the back end, they were about to be compromised. But this was detected by solution providers. So there are solution providers which are beyond typical OEM, and they are compatible with all known OEM, and they know these non-IT, which are like typically more than 100 customized protocol. And based on that, they were able to detect that actually the boiler or the pressure is not what we are watching, because someone took the control of the security control. So the security control, which was supposed to tell you whether you are in trouble or not, that was first compromised by hacker. But because of the OT security operation center capability using a specific vendor, they were able to catch this and avoid a big loss for the overall country, because it is contributing 60% of their country level revenue. So we need to really understand, it could be once in a blue moon time, but if it happen, it has a lot of catastrophic and reputational damage, and also it may impact human life also. Yeah, thanks.
So, Razi, in the last, as you said, in the last 3 years, you people have done a good job as far as improving your security postures are concerned. And as Mr. Mazad also said that right now we have an issue as far as availability is concerned, what to talk about confidentiality. But I can flip that thing and say that these because of any reason, right now we are having a load shedding in the entire country, and it is because of the fuel. But just imagine, in this day, we are facing shortage of fuel. And if some cyber attack comes to, let's say, God forbid, KE, and shut down its 2 or 3 latest plants, and you don't have any, load availability or supply availability from WAPDA. So what does that mean? That means that Karachi will be out of power till that ransomware or any party you agree to pay them. And once KE goes down, that means for significant time, what I'm saying, as happened a couple of years ago, if you remember, when there was torrential rain and for 48 hours there was no light in the city. So the telecom network went down. We were not able to call. Internet was down. And consequently, hospitals start canceling their operations and everything. God forbid, these things can happen. And Murphy's law says that if it has to happen, it will happen. You cannot say, dekha jayega jab hoga. So you know, do you face, as far as surveillance on your network, and I'm sure, and Mr. Mazad would also be facing the same challenges on their two power gen and power gen third power plants.
So, interesting point. So as mentioned earlier, I think I have been very fortunate. The people of this city are very fortunate that K's senior leadership and the board, they actually not only comprehend the seriousness, but there is a constant sort of reporting, watch eyes on the dashboard on what is happening on the cybersecurity. So that's number one. Now that has essentially enabled K Electric. So before I say anything, I must say, as you are aware, cybersecurity preparedness is a journey. There's not really, I don't think there will ever be a time when I can say, or anybody can say we are 100% secure. But having said that, so over the last 3 years, since this division was sort of established or more formalized, there has been extensive investments, and investments, when I say investments, it's not only in the tools or technologies, because anybody can go and get a tool and anybody can deploy technology, but it's about the mindset, the human resources, the continuous sort of, focus on cyber awareness. Yes, there is always a theoretical possibility and a probability, and I don't think we can bring it to zero, that things can go wrong, and especially somebody like K Electric. So because we are vertically integrated, generation, transmission, distribution. So, and so I think what we have also sort of embarked on a journey, being pushed by the leadership and by the board, patronized by the leadership board, was we have commenced and we do carry out a regular basic cyber hygiene. And by that, we mean that very recently with our Bin Qasim power plants, we have actually done simulated attacks and gone through those restoration of ICS and DCS and HMI data from our backups. Now, obviously, there are improvements. There is always room for improvement. But at the same time, that gave confidence to us as cybersecurity sort of, professionals, as well as to the leadership and management, that God forbid, if something happens, there is enough resiliency, and we call it cyber resilience. So we are testing out cyber resilience across our 4 OEMs, Schneider, Allen Bradley, Siemens. So that's number one. Number two is we have actually also practiced restoration and recovery of our generation plants and transmission minus the automation. So even if those automations there, we have successfully seen how those could be isolated. So the fear that we could be down for extended period of time is minimal. And number three, and this should come as a sort of, word of sort of, a confidence, a element of confidence to the people and stakeholders, that we have recently engaged with a global OT specialist firm, German-based, who are carrying out a complete end-to-end cybersecurity stack risk gap assessment on our top key sites. And that will provide us with a template and a roadmap on how do we continue the journey. Having said that, I think I must add the standard disclaimer: no guarantees. Anything can go wrong here.
So I think, yeah, talking about this global OT vendor, I think, there needs to be some vulnerability scanning on the OT devices as well, to really see where is the gap, where are the vulnerabilities, because on the other side of in the IT sector, we do app scans, we do operating system scan, we do deep scans, we do every scan. But over here, the equipment vendor says that I'm going to be doing the scan and you don't worry, we are
So that's a very good point. And exactly on that point, because our contracts already require our OEMs, Siemens, Schneider, Allen Bradley, and whatnot, to make sure that all those things are patched, they carry out, and we also get those reports. But engaging that third party, that global OT security third party, that was the whole idea, because the board was saying, yes, that is good, but let's have an independent, fresh pair of eyes to look into that and get that confidence. So we are actually in the process of getting that as well. As I said, it's a journey. It's critical. And I think another important factor in this whole OT game is how the operators and engineers. So as my friend over here rightly pointed out, that there's a lot of misconception that, hey, there's an air gap. Look, we are not connected to internet. I think those days are long gone. We all know there's so much ubiquity on these internets and the net that we really cannot be sure. Coming back quickly to your vulnerability assessments and threat hunting, there are actually a whole sector which is coming up. And if you just Google it, the leaders like Fortinets and the FireEyes and the Mandiants and the Dragos and the Nazamis, they're all coming out with those specialized tools. But look, all these tools and everything is only as good as the people and intellectual sort of in a capital which is there. And what is the advocacy from the leadership? And I think we are very fortunate on that.
I would like to add one thing here. So overall, basically a kind of awareness is required, special awareness for OT perspective. So whether it is for IT or for plant management, plant staff, instrument engineer, and IS. And I have seen even there are good track, there are companies globally available where actually they offer foundation level OT cybersecurity training, which is applicable for all. But then they have a specialized OT cybersecurity training just to design your OT plant, keeping in mind cybersecurity as top priority. Second thing is a course which is only talking about the operational angle of the plant, while again keeping cybersecurity in as their number one priority. And the third thing is assessment perspective. Like someone should be able, so before plant have a major change, before it go live, it should go through a typical OT cybersecurity assessment. So those training tracks are available, and if similar to CISSP and other specialized training, then you become, the hi-fi OT cybersecurity consultant or specialist after attaining all these different angles. So I think the time has come, rather than thinking in the air, a systematic approach where all different audience, starting from grassroots level, normal employees, technical staff, engineers. And by the way, there is a last thing I would like to mention. There is a different mindset. Usually the IT people, all over banks and technology company, but for the OT perspective, these are engineers, typical engineers having 20-year experience, and they have their own direction and they have their own mindset. Cybersecurity, because of IT and OT conversion, it is a new topic for them. So we need to also educate them about this convergence and the threats applicable and the type of right training to actually elevate their security maturity level. Yeah.
This is absolutely spot on
We
what
are
Mr.
just having last 2 minutes.
I'll take 30 seconds on this point because this is very important what Mr. Mizad mentioned in the end. The people dealing with these OT technologies are engineers with very limited background on how the IT operates. And that is where the awareness part and the human development part comes in with the huge challenges. I mean, if you look at the architecture of an OT environment, there you have level 0 where you have these PLCs and RTUs, and then in the level 1 you have these SCADA systems and the all the human machine interfaces. Then on top you have the control systems, And all these systems, none of our IT guys or the people who have been graduated from computer science, they understand these technologies. So when we were developing the human capital for this, it was really difficult for us to have our IT resources get into the cybersecurity discussion with an engineer who has no knowledge of the IT, and this guy has no knowledge of the core infrastructure of for the design of. But we have done a lot of work on that, and I think yes, this is what we need. We need engineers who understand IT and cybersecurity, and we need cybersecurity experts who understand this whole architecture.
Thank you very much, Mehzad Saab, Razi Saab, Asad Saab. And we would really like to carry this discussion in the form of some recommendations to NEPRA to provide our inputs so that we can move forward and bring these issues and what cybersecurity threats we are facing and will face. And we cannot continue like this. Thank you again. Thank you very much.